A very warm welcome to our special presentation on India or Bharat hosting the G20 Summit for the very first time. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to take you through the streets of the national capital on our ride. Now, this bus, one of the 400 electric buses added to the fleet where the Delhi government is concerned for public transport. State-of-the-art electric bus with state-of-the-art features befitting of a global power to add to its transport system. And of course, viewers, the spotlight, the national capital of Delhi, not just reflecting and basking in the glory of the G20, but also adding to it, and completely spruced up, waiting to invite and receive, of course, invited already, but receive the delegates as they're going to continue to come in. This time around, for India, hosting for the first time, the theme for the G20 Summit: One Earth, One Family, One Future. Hop in on our G20 Hop On, Hop Off bus. Our reporters, our guests, all in where we talk shop, but also show you the sights and sounds of the national capital. And joining me there is my colleague Nabila Jamal. Nabila, introduce us to a plush ride. Like I said, most of us when we go abroad on holidays, we have that bus, a hop on, hop off. This is our G20 hop on, hop off. Introduce us.
And let me tell you, I've taken a brief ride in it and it's super comfortable. So this is one of the 400 buses, e-buses, electronic buses, which the Delhi government has introduced on the streets. And it's so swanky. It's basically going to be part of the whole G20 sparkle here, if I may say. This is precisely where we are right now, at the center, heart of Delhi, which is a high security zone. This very bus, the e-bus, will be plying through with passengers. Of course, you're not allowed to get off the bus here, but it's got full branding of the G20 right outside, but this very new swanky electric bus will be plying through the high security zones carrying passengers. So the speciality of this bus is, first of all, it's an electronic bus, which means it has almost zero carbon emissions, or it has tremendously reduced carbon emissions. Apart from that, the kind of panic buttons here for safety, security. There are 3 CCTV cameras, if I could ask my camera there, the far end one, 2 right in the front here, CCTV cameras and a GPS tracking system to track your movement live.
And the reason why we're in this bus, viewers, because we're talking about a bus, is actually to showcase how Delhi has completely, decked up, yes, but in its Sunday best, Nabila. So lovely, the city.
You know, the lights, the kind of grandeur that Delhi has thrown up is really amazing. I haven't seen something like this the time that I moved into Delhi. This is spectacular. And I think this is the kind of high-profile beautification that one needs to be welcoming world leaders. In every junction, every roundabout and footpaths, you will see all gleaming lights. Some really exotic plants that have been planted only to welcome guests for the G20 there. Some water fountains that have been, placed, spending a lot of money. Well, it's well deserved. The money well spent to beautify Delhi, because here you have the most powerful leaders of the countries globally, right, who are descending. So this is surely one of the best images of Delhi that I've seen so far, Preeti.
Well, it's Delhi's moment as well as it's India's moment. What we're going to do is we're going to go onwards and pick up our first line of guests. Our Foreign Affairs editor, Geeta Mohan, along with former diplomats, would be joining us next. As we make our way to Pragati Maidan, capturing the sights and sounds of the national capital, I want to bring in our Foreign Affairs editor, Geeta Mohan, for a larger understanding, Geeta. For those of us, because it's the first time that India is hosting the G20 Summit, can you give us, for those who are not well versed with what is the G20, a quick crash course on what is the G20 and the importance of G20. And of course, we're going to bring in our guests as well into this conversation.
Well, Preeti, this is the first time that I'm seeing so much of hype on and around G20. It's never happened before. What is G20? It's the group of 20 member states, 19 countries and the European Union, which actually is representing 27 nations, of which quite a few of them are part of the G20 themselves, like Germany, France, Italy, you name them, all the big European countries. But what is the G20? It's not a strategic forum. It's not. It is a multilateral forum, but not a geopolitical strategic forum. It's primarily. It was formed in the 1990s initially to combat economic problems and the frailties of economic recession that many countries were feeling. It reached, and back then it was just finance ministers, central governors, bank governors level. And later, in around 2008, when the global recession hit real hard, was when there was a realization that there needs to be a grouping. This grouping has to be elevated to leadership level. And so that's when summit level meetings began to take place. In the initial stages, all the summits were taking place in the developed countries, primarily America, Canada, France, so on, and Germany. Later, we saw that there were groupings that were made, and each grouping, the countries were members, would get a turn to become, to host or to chair the G20. In the grouping that India was in, India could have got this G20 summit a little earlier. There's a lot of conversation around whether if it was chosen for this year, given that it is an election year. Nonetheless, it's an important one. And so now India is hosting the G20. But like I said, Preeti, never have we seen this kind of this kind of hype. And why is that hype around G20 now? It no longer is only an economic forum. There's so much of politics involved. To get a perspective on how things have changed, let's just go across to Ambassador Prabhu Dayal.
Now, you rightly said, Geeta, that the G20 was conceived of as an economic organization. The focus was on economic integration and strengthening of cooperation between different member states on the economic areas. But you know, economics is very closely intertwined with politics. As you rightly said, it is now doing it more strongly than ever because the Russia-Ukraine war has divided the members of the G20. There is the United States and its Western allies on one side. There is China and Russia on the other. So, because of the political divisions, the geo-economic activities are also being impacted.
Also the political intonation, sir. Look at it not just through the prism of Russia-Ukraine war. Look at how this thing has been hyped up because of the India-China tensions. It's not just West versus China anymore. It's India versus China too. Xi Jinping not coming, while, you know, the administration would say is not unusual, it certainly is a departure from the past. This is the first time that Xi Jinping is not attending a G20 summit.
You're right. The tensions between China and India, which have escalated in recent months, certainly may have been a factor in Xi Jinping staying away from this G20 summit. But there are other factors too. For instance, the United States-China dialogue has reached such a stage where I think Xi Jinping wants to talk to Biden at a time and place of his own choosing. Then again, China uses these multilateral organizations to enhance its influence. The G20 setting here in India would not have permitted him to be able to successfully play that role.
You know, it's interesting because I want to ask you, Ambassador, the sheer fact, are we to look at this summit taking place in India as India being, the playground of the new Cold War, or the emerging of a new world order, which many are also talking about? Because there's no Putin, there's no Xi Jinping, but there's, of course, Biden, there is Mr. Rishi Sunak.
I would put it this way. It is not a playground for geopolitics, but it is certainly an arena where India is showing its global importance. It gives an opportunity for India to show how it can shepherd the interests of the developing countries. India has time and again been emphasizing that it lays great importance to the interests of the global south. Though of course there are many in the Western world who even question this concept of the global south. But nonetheless, we are trying to help the developing countries, so it is enabling us to be able to play the sort of role which we would like to play in the international arena, but we are not able to play such a role in the United Nations because for a variety of reasons we are not even admitted as a permanent member of the UN Security Council.
Right, Preeti, you and I have been discussing this, and we've been discussing this in our studio as well. The biggest challenge for India is going to be consensus. Bringing in a document, a joint communique that really has consensus. It's not just Russia-Ukraine war anymore. China has made it a point to object to any Indian initiative every step of the way. So, are you looking at a consensus document at all? Some officials say a consensus on development, but that's not a consensus document.
Geeta, you have rightly emphasized what China is up to. China is not going to be a part of the solution to global economic problems. China is part of the problem itself. It has created several aspects of the economic issues which are confronting the world. So China would not play along with a communique which would be acceptable to the other G20 members. I don't see the possibility of a communique as being very strong. If you remember, at the foreign ministers meeting which was held earlier this year, no joint communique was issued. There are deep differences. So if at all there will be a joint communique, it will be one where only, certain issues will be touched upon, but the Western countries would like to have reference to the Russia-Ukraine war, and there will be the Chinese and the Russian delegations which will oppose that. So there could be a stalemate. So I would not be too surprised if there is no joint communique.
I know we have to close this.
We've got to close this, so it's like a hop-on, hop-off bus, as Nabila and I have also been taking you through the city. We're going to end this there. Thank you, Ambassador, and I hope you and your wife had a good ride on our hop-on and hop-off G20
It was a great
bus.
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, and appreciate for you to join us. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. All right, so hopping on to our G20 hop-on, hop-off bus is former diplomat S.K. Tayal and his beautiful wife. Ma'am, you're looking lovely. Geeta, over to you. Want to talk some shop with the diplomat on what we are expecting, or the former diplomat on what we are expecting? What would be the biggest takeaways?
Well, there are important takeaways, Preeti, when it comes to the agenda. It's a whole bunch of ideas that will be concretized by the leaders when they meet on the 9th and 10th. But, Ambassador Tayal, the fact that there is going to be no consensus document owing to the Russia-Ukraine war, as also China's various objections. How do you see that? What's your reading on it? Is that the host country's failure, or the fact that the politics today does not allow any host country to take the onus of a consensus document on it?
It is most certainly not host country's failure, because these are the currents of world history and international relations, etc. And we must never forget that G20 is really for economic issues, for the bread and butter issues, for developmental issues. It is not for political issues. So if Ukraine is not being discussed, or if there are no paras on Ukraine, or there is no consensus on, I think we should not bother about that at all. And we should go back to the basics, as they say, and see what more can be done for major issues, whether it is debt relief. That is the major issue. The debt vulnerability is the major issue. Climate finance, recently there was this just yesterday meeting in Africa on climate finance and how they are suffering, and unless these $100 billion which were promised in Paris, there should be some concrete outcomes there, not just aspirational. Unfortunately G20 now in the last 2-3 summits has become more aspirational with no real tangible numbers.
That's true.
And there is a great effort on our part with our Sherpas that there should be some tangible outcome, and we hope that there will be tangible
I just
outcome.
have a question on that, but if Chinese President Xi Jinping, Putin of Russia isn't coming, do you believe that we're still, without sans these two really important nations, we're still going to have a tangible outcome to a G20 in Delhi?
You see, at present, Russia's importance is on grain export, and that is being discussed separately. Let us not mix on our facts. Turkey is discussing, UN is discussing, and G20 is not in the picture. So whether Putin is coming, not coming, in my own personal view, if President Putin is not coming, it is good. Otherwise, it would have distracted the entire G20 on Ukraine issue.
This is one of my favorite installations there. This has also happened for the G20, Nabila, if I'm not right.
So all sorts of shapes and sizes. When it comes to fountains, there are all sorts of shapes and sizes. And even that,
The bull.
Oh, okay, all right.
all sorts of shapes and sizes. And the money that has been spent, Preeti, you should tell us, has the Delhi government contributed here extensively on sprucing up Delhi itself for G20?
You know, that's political because the Delhi government.
Or has it been all the efforts? No, because
I don't want to get into the
it's
politics
interesting.
of it all.
No, but I like one of the boards, the NHAI says,
Yeah.
not just building roads, building a nation. So have we built a nation? Have we put India on the global map?
Ma'am, what's your favorite part of Delhi right now? I always like the Lutyens part of Delhi. We are heading towards the Lutyens part of
And be sure the Lutyens part of...
all the fountains are working there and it looks so pretty.
But Lutyens Delhi is going to be fully shut, Preeti. There's really nothing that's going to be open. All restaurants, cafes, all band.
Sorry.
I'll say this is a national effort. And every designer, every creative person, every wall artist, you see so much of creativity all around, and they are all to be congratulated and really celebrated as we are traveling through Delhi. That every corner has been done, and it's a collective effort.
Prime Minister Modi speaks about cooperative federalism, and there are 200 meetings in 50 cities. We've not seen the kind of involvement of state governments. Do you think that was lacking? You saw states, you saw culture from states, but participation of state governments, whether they're BJP or non-BJP, the posters, the hoardings, it's just not as inclusive as it should have been. Do you think there could have been more?
I had visited some city like Goa, and when some events were on, so there was at least one advantage. All these cities have been cleaned up, spruced up, and people are happy that some investment has taken place. So that is a good outcome for the citizens of that state or of that city. And after all, events were held in 50 odd cities, from Arunachal Pradesh to Kashmir to Kanyakumari, which has never happened earlier. So one should look at the positive of it, and I will avoid the politics of it.
Okay, let's look at the positive. Kashmir, big agenda. It changed how the world views Kashmir, especially the Arab world. Some countries did not turn up, but they still sent representation even from the private sector, such as Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. But they did show up in Kashmir. The fact that Kashmir is now dehyphenated, is that a masterstroke?
I think yes. Whether it is Arunachal Pradesh or Kashmir, they are integral parts of India, and the government of India, all their agencies should behave as such, and if some meetings are being held in the rest of the country, they must be held at whatever cost. And the message goes home, this world is realist. The world understands realism, it understands strength, and it understands commitment. And by holding this tourism meeting and Lal Chowk, and all the pictures I'm seeing are absolutely wonderful, and there's no chaos. I'm sure you win the hearts and minds of the people of whoever a little group which is not perhaps fully integrated with India. You win their hearts and minds also. Now there are issues in Pakistan occupied Kashmir, I'm told, and they want the same kind of development which has happened in the rest of the country.
Do you believe that that India hosting the G20 or being this year's India's presidency, and the way we've done it, at least in terms of welcome, the grandeur, the security arrangements, it looks fabulous, and it looks like and it shows India's growing presence globally. Do you think any on that front will influence a decision or a debate on India's side? are in India's favor?
I would say that India has raised the profile of G20 globally. And as we were in Korea, there was hardly any activity there when the G20 happened there. In US, nobody cares if there is G20 or not. So the expectations are also high, and hope that there is some good outcome. And ultimately, it will raise profile of India globally, even that Global South Summit. And I think the entire exercise has been planned with meticulous detail. What all is achievable politically, domestically, and internationally.
There you have, by the way, that's ITC Maurya, where Joe Biden is likely to be staying there. If he's going to be coming, he's tested COVID negative, right, Geeta?
That's right. Jill Biden tested positive, the First Lady.
Right.
But he is going to be taking tests on a regular basis. And should he test positive, he will not take that flight. But that's
Right.
only...
But there are already 20 aircrafts that have landed from the United States, we believe, for a whole
true.
week.
That's
and that's precisely the hotel ITC Maurya that they're staying. So in this high security zone, you have all the foreign delegates and head of states who are going to be staying. So it's a Herculean task for the Indian government. We believe 130,000 security personnel have been deployed right here in the center.
In fact, not just Maurya. China and America are neighbors.
All right, next and the number of G20 mini events that have been held all across the country, sir, a good 300 we believe, and have been largely successful. And as much as we call this a geopolitical issue, it is also politics played in India extensively in the most positive way that I say. But the ruling government here has really sort of projected their flair and their strength, their power across the nation with the name of G20.
So all these thousands of delegates which came from 20 countries and so many others were invited, they went all over India and participated.
Yeah.
I think they will take back a huge positive message about India and about India's tourism potential, cultural potential, the participation and the enthusiasm, energy. I think these all travels, and this adds to the glory of our country. And if we are going somewhere up, it all adds to the image of the country. And this is what will
also
stay.
Add to image of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, you believe?
Sure.
Yes.
He is our leader. He is our Prime Minister of the country. So surely.
Definitely there, but your stop is coming in. But thank you, ma'am and sir, for joining us. We're going to let we're going to drop you off on the next stop right there, and we're going to chug along further. Well, not chug along, but drive along further very comfortably at that. But thank you. All right, other than just the preparations of G20, the mammoth security at play, I just want to quickly bring in Geeta and Nabila in on this as well. Nabila, in terms of security, what are we looking at? Because it's the security of the national capital. It's the first time we are hosting the summit, and we're going to have a slew of dignitaries and heads of state.
And that's why it's all the more important. You have almost 130,000 security personnel who've been deployed right in the heart of Delhi city. And the entire NDMC area is closed. So I'm going to repeat this. Markets like Khan Market, Connaught Place, all going to be fully shut. Government schools are closed.
Only in the New Delhi area.
Yeah,
Only in the New
Delhi area. Yes, New Delhi area, the NDMC area. Government schools, government offices.
Emergency vehicles?
Yes, only emergency and essential needs vehicles are allowed inside the NDMC area, and that's
ambulances.
Yes, ambulance and those vehicles carrying essential needs or essential items.
What if I want to go to the railway station?
Well, you can go to the railway station as long as you're in the car and plying and moving. You can't stop anywhere. You can't get off. You can't loiter around.
Is the rest of Delhi open?
The rest of Delhi is open, but it's all high secure zone. There's a hawkeye on every part of Delhi. All borders are fully shut. They're not going to allow for protest. That's the biggest worry.
What if I want to order food?
The biggest worry.
From
delivery apps are not going to be working in the NDMC area.
Only in NDMC?
Only in NDMC area. The rest of Delhi, yes, it will be allowed. But anywhere in the heart of Delhi, the NDMC area, which you should sort of list out, Preeti, what are the areas that come under Delhi NDMC? You have have no food delivery apps that will deliver to you. Restaurants and
no
restaurants are
Puri,
going
no
to be
Connaught
closed.
Place.
No, all of that are going to be closed in the first place. So even if you have a home here, you will be given a security or an ID card. Those areas, the areas where there are homes located in the NDMC area, will also have some kind of identity card that they'll have to show to cops. But the most important thing here is that what if there is an occurrence of a protest along the border areas? It could be a very a sweet spot for protesters to raise their voice to try and grab attention. Now that's the reason why all the borders that align with Delhi are completely shut. Only vehicles are allowed to move through those borders. No protesters will be tolerated at all.
All right, so the Delhi borders will be sealed, but practically what we will also see, Geeta, where the New Delhi area is concerned, where Nabila just spoke up, and we are right now at India Gate area. It's going to be a mini lockdown in the NDMC area, the New Delhi area. And in terms of, Geeta, the delegates coming in, the foreign delegates coming in, heads of states, security, has to be multi-layered on that front.
Not just security. Just a few days ago, there were rehearsals. To coordinate between the vehicles, which means the convoys that are going to move, with the delegates, with the leaders, and the security personnel, the traffic police, all of them coordinating to see which hotel, what time, which delegation will leave for the venue or for various places.
It's like clockwork?
It is going to work like absolute clockwork, because you will see various delegates not just go to the venue. Prime Minister of Britain, Rishi Sunak, will be going to Akshardham Temple. He's going to go to Humayun Tomb. So trying to balance the whole thing out with Humayun Tomb and Akshardham.
That's very interesting. Political messaging at its best.
Absolutely.
Humayun Tomb and Akshardham Temple. And as we go along to Pragati Maidan, that's the India Gate, looking resplendent at that. Stunning view of the India Gate.
With the tricolour. There is one national museum which all the first ladies are going to visit.
Wow.
That's going to be an interesting one.
The spouses of all the head of states.
So there are two very important things. One is the Rajghat visit that the leadership will do, following which the spouses would. And then they're also going to go to the National Museum where they'll be taken through the museum to show.
And apparently there are 20 bulletproof limousines that have been hired at a cost of 18 crore rupees. So that's also
a lot of high-end cars.
Don't worry, Biden does not travel in hired limousines. His vehicle comes. It's always flown
and
down.
That's what the 20 aircrafts that are
on Air Force
One. On Air Force One.
It comes in a carrier before the Air Force One.
All right, so we've discussed whether Putin's not coming, what could be the impact of that. We've also discussed with Xi Jinping not coming, what could be the impact of that. But for those who are coming, what are we offering, Geeta, in terms of just, the spread?
Well, a lot of vegetarian food. Preeti, there's going to be a lot of variety of Indian...
No non-vegetarian?
Vegetarian food.
Is there an option like a sidecar if you want?
Nothing.
Nothing?
No. Not even a chicken tikka?
Nothing.
But why?
So we've been told that it's all vegetarian. Certainly no alcohol will be served.
But why?
But this is the first time. We've done many summits. I've covered many summits, Preeti. For foreign delegations especially, who their mainstay in terms of food is their staple diet is meat. So it will be surprising, but also there's a change. There's a lot of millet. So G20 has millet as an agenda. Right. So that they're trying to showcase millets. So there's going to be different kinds.
I was reading, Nabila, there's millet sushi.
Recipes.
Yeah, there's millet sushi.
Yeah, and
jawar rotis. Noodles?
Jawar noodles and some millet sushi. I don't know what millet it is.
Golgappas, ragi roti. You have almost every Indian dish from every part of the country.
Yeah.
The south to the north. All in the form of millets that's going to be served to them.
When you're doing a bilateral, it's different. Yeah. When you're doing a multilateral and you have so many delegates coming in, so many people from the press corps coming in, they'd expect food from their country.
Right.
In fact, when we do G20 summits anywhere else, they actually have country-specific
so you do have
food.
A counter where Indian food is served.
Yes, Indian food. You have Chinese, because they know that the Chinese, the Japanese are not comfortable eating. It does not suit their palate, so they will taste. But if they want to have a wholesome meal, they'll go to their counter.
Right. Okay, so, fine, dampener, there is no non-vegetarian and there will be a lot of states disappointed because we could have used this opportunity to promote and showcase, our non-vegetarian cuisine as well. For many, they might be disappointed because there might not be a glass of wine or a glass of anything other than water and mocktails, right?
I think that's a
There are
for
Golgappas.
anyone.
Right. So there is no alcohol, but there's going to be plenty of other stuff to keep most of the delegates that have come well satiated. And we are now moving on to our next stop. Joining me now is my colleague Aishwarya, who's going to fill us in on all the preparations at Pragati Maidan and the Bharat Mandapam. So Aishwarya, tell us, as we close into Pragati Maidan, that's going to be the epicenter of the G20 Summit.
Yes.
What can we expect? What is it looking like? And what is the Bharat Mandapam?
See, Preeti, I can tell you one thing which is for sure is that everything that is India is present at the Bharat Mandapam. So, for example, if you want to talk about carpets, Kashmir is known for carpets. We have carpets from Kashmir. We also have carpets from Uttar Pradesh. You speak about the precious gems that Rajasthan is famous for, the white marble that Rajasthan is famous for. There are many, ornate items which have been put in the Bharat Mandapam which have come from Rajasthan. We talk about the black stone. We talk about pearls. A lot of those pearls are being used. They have come from South India. So one thing that the government has made sure of is that this actually is Bharat Mandapam, which means everything that is India, that our country speaks about, everything that is good about our country, what our country is known for. Small miniatures of those things will be present. It's spread across 123 acres, so it's mind-boggling. Spread across 5 floors. Every floor has something which is different. And one more thing which they have done is they have fused Indian tradition with the technology. So once you enter the hall, you see that, excellent Wi-Fi, the kind of tablets that you see, the kind of, they have made sure that there's a lot of technology which is in use. And from what I understand at the moment, if you see the badges that the delegates have been given, there'll be screens which will be put up and they'll make sure that, once you enter, the screen starts displaying everything. So a lot of things are automated. So it's not just the traditional India that they want to showcase. They're also, telling the world, because 20 of the world's most important leaders are coming, delegates are coming.
Tell us, once you enter, because, a lot that our viewers and a lot of us in studios will see is what you bring to us. So as you enter the Bharat Mandapam, the leaders' chambers, how is that divided? Where do they come and eat? How's that divided? Rest and relaxation, then the press area. Give us a sense of all of that.
Yeah, so, there are 5 floors.
And I believe, as Geeta was telling us, there's a craft center.
There is a craft center. There's also a center which depicts the culture of our country. When you enter, you see the huge Nataraj, the statue which has been put up. Just images of those statues tell you it has been brought in from Tamil Nadu. So it tells you what exactly the Prime Minister, because, he is the one who's been the driving force. He's the one who said that we need to make sure that, what happens now is that will be carried forward, and there are certain things which they have done very, very, which are very new. As Geeta was talking about that, sending an entire team there just to make sure to see, what they are doing. So definitely they have been thinking about it. Once you enter, there are different chambers, and let me tell you, there are 2 halls. They have a wall in between, but that's a wall which, you can remove. Once you do that, then that hall can seat almost 3,000 to 4,000 people in one go. So that's the kind of vision that they have had for G20.
And all of this is with chandeliers, with carpets,
everything,
and
yes,
the whole works, huh?
Everything
Can I
with
tell
all
you
works.
which is the biggest room, the biggest hall over there? It is the International Media Centre. You know how many registrations there?
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands of press people who've registered from India and abroad. So we're going to see a massive turnout of media contingent from the G20 member states, and that's why our hall is the biggest hall in the Bharat Mandapam.
There are special areas for those traveling with the delegates, like spouses, family. For them, the crafts area, because a lot of markets, as Nabila is telling us, are inaccessible, will be shut. So for them, where will they be taken? Is there a place at the Pragati Maidan?
Yes, there is a place from where, in case they want to shop, they'll be given all those things. You were speaking about some of the markets being shut. Let me tell you, Khan Market is shut for 3 days.
Yeah,
8, 9,
that
10,
we
10.
know.
Yeah. So for the next 3 days, Khan Market is shut, and there's a reason for that because the security is so tight. You have, from what we understand, the security team, especially of the US president, have been in India, have been in the hotels for the past almost 2 months. So that's the kind of security that they have to take place of. You have been traveling from the airport till now. I'm sure the bus would have been stopped at least many times by the policemen because, they are on alert. They are on extremely high alert.
Yes.
And there's a reason for that because...
So all of the families will be taken where all there?
So the families, they'll be taken to the museum. They'll also be taken to the Pusa Institute. That's something which is very interesting. So the spouses will be going to Pusa Institute. The different kind of millets that are being grown in Pusa. What are the benefits of millets? Because this 2023 is in fact the International Year of Millets.
Right.
Something that the Prime Minister pushed for, something that the United States acknowledged. And this is the year of the millets. So that's why even in the food, Preeti, did you ever imagine you will eat cookies made out of millets?
That's it. We've reached our final destination on our G20 hop on, hop off ride. Time for us to hop off, and we're on our way to the Pragati Maidan, the Bharat Mandapam, and it is looking very, very pretty. Come on, girls, let's go. So what is it? As we close this show, a special presentation on what we expect from the G20. Geeta, I'll give you the first word.
So what I expect is 3 days of real hard work for me. For the delegates, of course, but for me it's going to be really gruesome, tiring.
Yeah, I can
So for
imagine.
Geeta, it's for elections is to me. For Geeta, it would be the G20 Summit. Aishwarya, you'd also be, Nabila and Aishwarya both will be boots on ground. What do you expect?
I'm expecting, in terms of money, what the government is expecting is not just for India, but for globally, in the next 2 to 3 years, we will see the kind of, the signing that we will see in this year will actually lead to a lot of money being pouring in, not just for India, but across the globe. That's what the government is hoping.
Nabila, what do you see? And that's the India flag right there. What do you see,
And a
Nabila?
host of other flags, all the countries that are going to be part of the G20, all their flags have been erected. And I think since India flag is #1, what I would hope and expect is that this G20 meet will catapult India to become a superpower. We already are a soft power. I want to see India becoming the superpower, leading the way to the world.
Well, okay, I'll tell you what I expect. All I expect is that Delhi remains the way it is right now.
So
as
beautiful,
clean,
so
as pretty and as beautiful. We're going to sign off, but our team of editors will be on the job, keeping you first, whether it's talking business, whether it's talking diplomacy, or it's talking about the massive cultural event that we'll also witness on the sidelines of the G20 Summit. Thank you for joining us.